you all for coming tonight. My name is Serena Zwart-Schaefer, and I'm currently serving as the president for Collegiate Farm Bureau. On behalf of Farm Bureau and Alpha Gamma Rho fraternity, we would just like to thank you for coming. Welcome to the Future of the Beef Industry panel. Tonight's event seeks to investigate the policies and technologies that will shape the next era in protein production. The planning committee for this event has worked diligently to frame questions that guide discussion and answer some of the industry's most pertinent and pressing issues. We will begin in just a moment with the introduction of our panelists, followed by about 30 minutes of moderated discussion, and concluding with a live audience questioning. The panel consists of 5 experts in their respective fields. They each bring an impressive skill set and perspective, which should make for a truly robust discussion this evening. I'll let them each introduce themselves here in a minute, but before we get started, I would like to thank again our numerous sponsors of this event, which can be found on the back of your trifold brochure. Stakeholders in our organization, such as yourself, help to drive advocacy and industry-relevant inquiry. Your time, talent, and treasure are truly welcomed and valued tonight. I will now yield the floor to our moderator, Mr. Zach Riley, and allow him to introduce himself.
All right, well, good evening, Vietnam. No, I'm just kidding. If you were old enough, you got that reference. Zach Riley, I work for the Colorado Farm Bureau. I've been in Colorado for about a whopping 2 years, so I'm an expert in all things hemp and marijuana. Not really beef, no, but I do have beef. Grew up in New Mexico on a cattle ranch on the eastern side of the state, little mom and calf operation, so nothing spectacular, so naturally I had to go to college and learn how to talk to a room full of strangers. So tonight, Melanie was so gracious to invite me to help moderate this panel and make sure that my coworker, Emily, who I'm going to kick it over to next, to behave yourself on the panel. But I work for the Colorado Farm Bureau. I'm the Director of Public Policy and National Affairs, handle all things regulatory and legislative for the Colorado Farm Bureau and our membership. We've got roughly 23,000 members statewide, so I believe we are the largest agricultural organization, membership organization in the state of Colorado. So pretty proud of that. Anyways, I will go ahead and kick it over to the good doctor here and let you go first.
That puts me on the spot.
You got 2 minutes. I didn't bring my cell phone because I get bored. I brought my cell phone to moderate.
Now we know the playing rules for the game this evening. My name is Dr. Jennifer Martin. I'm an assistant professor in the Department of Animal Sciences. My focus area is food safety and quality. I hail from Lubbock, Texas, and Central Texas. So I am not, there you go, that was the right way. Not the whoop, we're not going to do any Aggie signals in this class tonight. I have been in Colorado for about 4 years. I am not an expert, so I look forward to learning from you this evening about all that Colorado entails.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Emily Iba, and I also work for the Colorado Farm Bureau. I'm the Director of State Affairs there in Denver, which means I do everything Zach just said he does, only I do it at the state level. So I'm working with the legislature right now as we work towards wrapping up the end of the legislative session in 9 days, and then I'll transition a little bit more to some membership policy stuff as well. And so I hail from the great state of Nebraska, where I grew up on a cow-calf farm in central Nebraska. Attended the University of Nebraska-Lincoln, so I'm a big Husker fan. I wore the red tonight just for you all. Not really, that was a coincidence. But I grew up in Nebraska, and I've been in Colorado here working for the Farm Bureau for just over 3 years. So, Zach's a little bit bigger expert than I am.
Go ahead.
Thanks, Jordan. I'm Lee Leachman. We run a seed stock operation north of Wellington, Colorado, and we're in the genetics business cell bulls. I'm Jordan Levy. I guess I'm the newest Colorado resident. I moved here in September. I run a company called Arcadia Asset Management, which runs a physical commodities fund, and recently began to dip its toe into the venture capital world. And I orchestrated the purchase of Five Rivers Cattle Feeding, which is the largest cattle feeding operation in the world. Some of you guys know a little Thorne back there. I worked with his dad. So thank you all for having me today.
All right. Well, seeing as how y'all have nothing else to bestow upon us for the moment, I wanted to kind of help set up some of the ground rules right quick of our discussion tonight. I wasn't given privy to the rules beforehand, so I'm just kind of making this up as we go along. No, we're going to do this really informally. We're going to have a handful of structured questions to begin with to give the panelists kind of a warm-up round, and then y'all are going to rapid fire as many out of them from the mic as you possibly can after that. We've been limited by time and space, so we're going to try to keep it simple and only really work over the lobbyists and the doctor. But other than that, we're just going to work through these, and if you have questions as we go, feel free to raise your hand and come to the mic, and as long as it's pertinent to the question on the floor. So kind of keep it as simple as possible for those folks in politics. Yeah, so y'all are going to have to share that mic, so play nice with one another. First question, we're just going to dive right in. And I'm going to go ahead and kind of guide this a little and direct this question to Jordan. If you're cool with being the first guinea pig up.
I like you.
All right. What do you believe, and this question will actually go to any of the other prospective panelists, but we're going to start with Jordan. Will the addition of lab-grown meats do to the current market?
Well, that's interesting. Lee just asked me that question when we were in the back corner.
You just write it on the back
Look, it's a disruptor. It looks disgusting to me. However, I think it will bring people that traditionally don't eat meat into eating some form of wannabe animal protein. Whether or not that can translate into them wanting to eat the real thing is left to be determined. What we can tell you is that the year-on-year increases in consumption will be really impressive, and that's because you're starting with a tremendously low denominator. But ultimately, I think that there will be a place for lab-grown meat, and if it can get cheap enough, it might help feed those that can't afford the product that collectively the others in this room produce.
Anybody have a follow-up? So you kind of envision that as a gateway drug? You're trying to make that Colorado specific? Yeah. Okay.
I mean, I think it's interesting. I mean, obviously going to be primarily a competitor with the ground product, we would think at this point. I think the day they can make a steak grown in the lab that tastes like a steak will be probably long past our careers. Maybe you guys will still be here, but for sure Jordan and I will be gone. Okay? So that's the way I look at that. I mean, it's, a lot of this technology, we hear about these technologies for decades before they actually really have an effect, right? I mean, we're finally seeing cars that drive themselves, but they've been talking about that. Yeah, since the Jetsons, right? They don't know what the Jetsons are. That's yeah. But so, and I think the other side of that is, if you were ever in doubt whether, as a U.S. beef producer, whether your long-term viability is going to be achieved by competing with the lowest denominator on the beef quality scale, you probably are in trouble already. So I think, as U.S. beef producers, we've got to try to aim for the high-end producer. And my sense is that lab-grown beef will access a different consumer, a consumer that we're really pricing ourselves out of right now, maybe, and also a consumer that's sensitive, for whatever reason, to eating beef.
So, it's interesting, we hosted a forum today with a lot of beef producers and food service and retailers, and that was probably the top question we got, was what's on the horizon scientifically, from a regulatory perspective, marketing, commercial perspective, and it's driving a lot of conversations that 10, 15 years ago we weren't having. So the science is there, the scalability of it is still challenging. I think to your point, Lee, their ability to produce high quality proteins isn't there yet. So it's going to be a potential sector of the industry, but to a totally different clientele than what most beef producers are currently marketing towards. That said, one portion of the protein industry that's really interested in cell-cultured meats or lab-grown meats are pet food. When we think about competition for animal proteins, that's a huge competition for the current proteins that we consumed this evening and will continue to grow. So while we may not produce beef to satisfy the pet food industry, the lab or cell-cultured meat could. So I think that it still has a role in the overall protein market and the global economy of protein, but maybe not in the traditional ways that we view animal proteins. That said, I think the technology and the innovation is really impressive. We interact with these companies quite frequently. We have regular phone conversations with them. They're willing to engage in conversations about improving quality, improving safety. And because they're willing to engage, it's made us think about the way that we assess the safety and quality of the products we currently produce. And you've probably seen on the news where we're having conversations about labeling of these products that we haven't had previously. And those are good conversations to have. So I think this is challenging us as an industry to think about the way we produce proteins in ways that are benefiting the overall industry, even if it may be a competitor to our traditional proteins. I don't think it's going to be a competitor that any of us within our lifetimes are concerned about.
So what you're saying is, Dr. Martin, we have zero hope for bringing back horse slaughter for Purina and puppy kibble. I'm really downtrodden about that. Emily, what do you have something to add on to this?
Do you want me to have something to add?
This is your show, I'm just here.
Yeah, I guess I would just echo what my fellow panelists here have said. I do believe, and we're looking at it at the Farm Bureau as well, that it brings some differentiation to the market. It's a different product than what we've seen really ever. And with that, just as the good doctor here mentioned, as that refers, it does bring some regulatory and some challenges that way. So as the product does become more available in the marketplace, which as I understand now, it's not necessarily available at the retail or even at the for sale level. As that does become available, that is going to trigger some very important conversations. One of those conversations we've already had at the Colorado legislature just this year. Representative Pelton had a resolution urging the USDA and the FDA to talk about this and to talk about how they are going to regulate it and as it comes to the market and encouraging them to establish some standards once that product is ready. So that was something we were very supportive of at the Farm Bureau and something that we will continue to talk about as the product becomes available.
Great, thank you, Bill. I think that was a good segue into our next question. And I'm going to go ahead and open this one up to Dr. Martin here to start us off on the discussion. What is, in your opinion, or the panel's opinion, the projected timeline for lab-grown meats becoming readily available on the shelves of grocery stores? And how affordable will they be comparatively to conventionally raised on the hoof beef?
That's a great question. And when we ask the producers of cell-cultured meats what the timeline looks like, the answer changes, to be quite honest. I think in reality, they like to say they have prototypes of product that we can go into their facility and into their lab and take a steak or a roast or whatever it may be, but producing that at a scale large enough to see in retail is still many, many years, if not decades away. With that being said, we're seeing quite a few large meat packers and producers starting to invest, and the more investment, the faster the technology will develop. So it may change in the next few years, where instead of 20 to 25 years, we're looking at 10 to 15 years. But I still think we're years away from having it available at a grocery store or available at a restaurant for a person to purchase.
Excellent. Anyone have anything else to add to that?
The doc is the expert.
Well, I'm thinking price. Yeah, you know, I think the earlier projections when they were first looking at this was that, you know, if you were to eat a lab-grown burger, it could cost you in the upwards of $600-700 at the quarter pound. Is that something that any of you have heard or continue to see as the trend? Or do you think that it's just the sheer technological cost of producing, that 1/4 pound burger or whatever?
So, again, a great question. I think the reality is, early on, it's going to be expensive, but as more of it is produced, the technology becomes easier. As we see with any technological advancement, it will
Sure.
get cheaper with time. So early on, the cost to get in the market and to get in the game and buy the product is going to be high, but over time, it will probably normalize. I don't think it will ever be competitive with traditionally produced proteins.
Thank you very much. Anyone have, any of the panel have anything to add?